How's it going, everyone? It seems Prime Minister Scott Morrison has decided he certainly does not want to win the next election. He recently published an article in The Age where he has gone full global warming believer, and it goes like this. Wrecking ball not needed to tackle climate change. Uh-oh. Our government acknowledges and accepts the challenge of addressing climate change. That is one big fail point right there. The last time the coalition won an election in a landslide, it was with Tony Abbott, who was essentially fighting against a carbon tax. He campaigned on the fact that the coalition were not going to put in a carbon tax, and Julia Gillard wanted to put one in after saying that she wasn't going to. What that should have told the coalition is that global warming is a vote loser for them. If they want to win, they have to completely reject it. But here they are, accepting the myth and thus handing the election to Bill Shorten. We do not believe we have to choose between preserving our environment and keeping our economy strong. What they're trying to do is say, well, we believe that man-made global warming, or climate change it is now because they realise that the planet's likely to cool. We believe that it is real and that humans are doing something about it, but we just don't want to ruin our economy to fix it. So vote for us, and we'll save the economy, but we'll still fight against climate change, something that has been happening ever since the Earth had a climate. Our task now is to meet our international commitment set by the Abbott government in 2015. Stupid by the Abbott government there. They actually betrayed their voters, which is why their polls started dropping. To reduce our emissions by 26% below 2005 levels by 2030. That's why our government has announced a new comprehensive and fully costed $3.5 billion climate solutions package. That should tell you exactly why the climate change nonsense is so popular, and it's still getting pushed by certain parts of the government and the establishment. 3.5 billion reasons should tell you exactly why. That's $3.5 billion sacrificed to the god of climate change. How about we just get rid of all that funding? We say no more funding for the myth of man-made global warming, and we see how many people believe in it then. This is a demonstration of parasitism, and it shows you exactly why people keep pushing it. As I mentioned, there is a lot of money in it. Anyone who says, oh, I'm a big fossil, oh, they're the ones funding the denial, is absolutely full of crap. The people who benefit from this global warming nonsense are the ones who push it by a long, long way. It is essentially an industry, and this should show you exactly that fact. The second pillar of our climate solutions package is Australia's renewable hydroelectricity reserves in the Snowy Mountains and Tasmania. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redesign these world-class assets into new pumped hydro stations. Pumped hydro can deliver 24/7 renewable power and reliable power. Today we commit $1.38 billion in an equity investment for Snowy 2.0. Again, look at all that money getting spent on this cult. It's essentially a cult. If you don't know what pumped hydro is, that's where they pump water up the hill in order to send it back down again. If you know anything about physics, you know that's not all that efficient because they have to use energy to pump it up the hill. So let's actually hear what an expert has to say on the matter. Energy project financier David Carland, the executive director of Australian Resources Development Limited, argues that once the Snowy Hydro project is operating, it will provide only partial backup energy at a high cost. Using Snowy Hydro's modelling assumptions, Dr. Cullen's calculations show the levelized cost of energy, or unit cost of electricity over the lifetime of an asset, will deliver power significantly in excess of $90 per megawatt hour, after allowing for the cost of storage, cycle losses, and the initial cost of buying energy at off-peak prices. The effect of cycle losses means Snowy 2.0 will have to buy around 30% more power in order to pump water uphill than it can generate when water is released from the upper storage. That shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone who understands basic physics. It takes energy to pump it uphill, so the absolute very most that you can get is that energy back. And as Dr. Carland has pointed out, there are inefficiencies in that process, so you actually lose quite a bit of that energy, meaning it costs a lot more to produce it than you actually get out of it. That is going to push up the price of electricity. Snowy 2.0 is a pump storage operation that is a net user of energy and therefore cannot resolve the longer term issues of the lack of baseload supply in the national electricity market, Dr. Carland told The Australian. Based on Snowy Hydro's own modelling, the scenario in which Snowy 2.0 prospers is a world in which average power prices continue to rise. In an environment where prices are already going through the roof because our ruling elites simply refuse to build power generation that actually works. Anyway, let's get back to Scott Morrison's diatribe in The Age, where he's basically virtue signalling his leftist credentials to people who will never vote for him. The iconic Snowy Mountain scheme will help make renewables reliable, reduce volatility, and drive affordability in LNG markets and provide other services critical to the security and stability of the national electricity market. But as we just heard from someone who actually understands the process, that's just not the case. All it's going to do is push prices up because it is a net user of electricity. Saying, oh, it's more reliable. What they're arguing is that, that when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, as is the problem with solar and wind, they'll just turn on this pumped hydro to make up for the shortfall. But again, it's still going to push prices up because it takes so much energy to actually generate the pumped hydro. It's just a waste of money. They don't need it. There are much better ways of generating electricity, as we know. But unfortunately, according to our ruling class elite, those are unviable simply because they don't kowtow to the global warming cult. Our meaningful practical action on climate change without damaging our economy or the family budget is in stark contrast to Labor's plan of 45% emissions reduction target. Here we see it again. They're saying we're going to do the same thing as Labor, but we're not going to hurt the family budget, which is actually full of crap because, as you just saw, it's going to cost $3.5 billion. It's going to cost billions of dollars to implement this scheme, meaning they are going to have to raise taxes, or it's going to have to come out of some other spending program in order to actually pay for it. So whilst it may not affect people's budgets directly in that regards, it's still going to cost people money. They're just not going to see it. And that's assuming that it doesn't push power prices up, which it almost certainly will, because it costs more money to produce pumped hydro than you actually get out of it in energy. It is a loss leader. It loses money. That's why the free market doesn't do it. And that's why the government goes in and does these silly programs that are essentially just virtue signaling. They're nothing. They don't offer any meaningful solution to any actual genuine problem. And he finishes, I say it is important to have balance in Australia's emission reduction policies, a plan that works. I say it's important to keep power prices down in order to actually keep the family budget in check. But on this matter, I'm going to give the final word to the bad boy senator himself, Fraser Anning.
Yeah, just Scott Morrison's just told us that he's going to give $2 billion to the climate change industry. I don't know what's going on in your head, Scott, but you're going to have to stop kowtowing to your masters in the United Nations and start looking after the Australian people. We've had the worst stock losses in Australia's history in northwest Queensland in the floods, not to mention all the stock losses from the droughts across the rest of Australia. So it's time to start investing in Australia and Australians and forget the United Nations.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see ya when I see ya.